Welcome, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Welcome to another Thursday's Wisdom Talks. We're just going to give it a couple of seconds to let everyone come in and join us in the room. Before we start, I'd just like you to drop a little emoji in the chat that expresses how you might be feeling today, the day you might have had, just so we get an idea of where we are energetically. So if you're new and you just joined, just drop a little emoji. Let us know how you're feeling on this Thursday evening, afternoon, wherever you're joining from. So I'm going to start off. Thank you, Lisa. Someone's heart's on fire. So today is actually a full moon day. Yesterday was the appearance day of Narasimha Dev, one of the avatars of Vishnu. And we are focusing today actually on the Lion of Love. And we're joined by a very special guest. So for those of you who are new, welcome to Wisdom Talks. For those of you who are coming back, thank you for joining us on Thursday evenings, where we dive into the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita from a fresh perspective, with a fresh new lens, with lots of spiritual insight and an opportunity for us to share our thoughts together too. My name is Saj. I'm your Wisdom Talks host, and we're joined today by Kanchan Abja, who's going to be diving into the topic of love, how love is unconditional. And when we embrace love for the divine, our love for others becomes fearless. So we're going to be embarking on this transformative quest for spiritual enlightenment. But before we do that, I'm going to chant a very small, short invocation to bring us all into the room together, to bring us all on the same energy level, and for us to all tune in with each other. Thank you all for popping in your emojis for how you're feeling. Please keep them coming. And if they change, please pop them in. And I'd like you to just take a moment to close your eyes. You can observe with your eyes open, but it's nice to close your eyes just for this short invocation. And as your eyes are closed, I'd like you to try and bring to your mind's eye someone who has inspired you on your life's journey, someone who you look up to, someone who may have imparted wisdom and helped you to grow on your journey in life. And I'm going to chant this short invocation. Om Jnanaatimirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Jnanaatimirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Jnanaatimirandasya Jnana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. On this full moon day, on this full moon evening, we pay our respects and offer our obeisances to the teachers who have come before us, who have shone light on the spiritual path so that we may grow and we may evolve together. Thank you, everyone. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about our special guest today before we dive into this very special topic about the Lion of Love. You might be wondering who this Lion of Love is. Narasimha Dev is a deity, a form of the divine, which is half lion, half man, who's come onto this planet, who came onto this planet to vanquish a demon king and to restore peace and prosperity and balance to the environment. But before we go into a little bit more about this Lion of Love, I'm going to introduce Kanchan Abja and tell you a little bit more about him. So he's been teaching philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita for the last 20 years. He spent 1 year living the life of a monk at the ashram in Watford, and also traveled around India to spiritually prepare him for the corporate world, where he's worked in chartered accounting and he teaches other chartered accountants. And he's been working as a professional tutor for the last 12 years, helping graduates succeed in accounting. But in his other time, he's also very interestingly studying and training as a psychotherapist. And he also loves jumping on trampolines with his 2 daughters in his spare time. So please welcome our wonderful special guest, Kanchanabja, also known, that's his spiritual name, and he's known as Kunal as well in the real material world. Hi, Kunal. How are you?
Hey Sarge, thanks for the very kind introduction. Nice to be with you all today.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us. How are you
Thank
doing
you.
today?
Yeah, good, good. Like you mentioned, it's a full moon day. It was a very auspicious day yesterday, celebrating the appearance of uh, God who came as a lion, which is so mystical, which is so curious. Like, why would like you said, an avatar of Vishnu come to the world millions of years ago? But why would he come? Why would the Lord come in the form of a lion? So it's a really interesting story. It was really nice to celebrate that yesterday. Um, that day yesterday, I was at the Hare Krishna temple in Watford, which is really close to my house, which is the place where I spent some time some years back. So yeah, I'm feeling good.
Good, good. And for
Yeah.
those who've not heard of Nrsimha Dev before, the deity of Nrsimha, and also the story of Nrsimha, could you shed a little bit of light on the story of Nrsimha and why it's so celebrated and what it
Yeah,
symbolises too?
it's a really interesting story. I'll just say it in a little, like a real snippet nutshell of the story. So there was this little boy who's 5 years old, and this little boy who's 5 years old, he came into this world as we all do, with our own personality, right? We all have a personality that we're born with. We have the nature versus nurture argument, but I'm sure we've all come to this understanding that there's a bit of both. There's nature and there's nurture. We've come with stuff and we've also learned stuff while we've been here. So this little boy, he came with a lot of devotion. He came to this world with a lot of devotion, with a lot of should we say, higher intelligence, some curiosity. And this devotion that he had, which was just inside his heart when he was born, was I really believe that there's a God up there. There's a someone up there who's taking care of me. He's looking after me. This Lord is looking after me. And he had firm faith. And his dad was a demoniac king, like you mentioned, Sarge. So his dad, a demoniac king, was really upset that his son wasn't doing what he wanted him to do. So, if any of you have children and your children don't do what you want them to do, you might have an idea of how this king was feeling. But times that by a trillion, because it's not like they didn't go brush their teeth when they were meant to, which is what my kids try and get away with. Papa, I brushed my teeth. I promise. Come near me, let me smell your breath. No, 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 no. It's right, so you know that they've not done what they're meant to have done. But this king was really upset because he wanted to take over the world. He was very anti spirituality. He was very begrudging. He was very vengeful that his brother was killed. He was very anti God, very angry. And he wanted his son to take over this kingdom of ruthlessness. But his son was Prahlad. His name's Prahlad. He just wanted to be a nice, humble boy who believed in God. So when it came to it, the father couldn't handle it. He just couldn't handle it. He couldn't handle that his son was going against him. My dad wanted me to be a pharmacist, so I went to university year 1, and then I did year 1 again. And then I did year 1 again until my dad realized I ain't gonna do what he wants me to do. you know, so so so, so Prahlad, he went to all these different types of schooling to learn how to be a ruthless ruler. But he just wasn't up for listening. He just wasn't up for doing what he wasn't born to be. And he was born to be a devotional person who had a lot of faith in a higher divinity. So as the king was so against him, the king then decided, look, I disregard this boy, and because he's demoniac, he decided, let me just try and kill my kid. So he tried to kill his son. He tried to get him tortured. He tried to burn him. He tried to put him in a pit of snakes, but nothing happened to him. So this is a story going back millions. Nothing happened to this boy, and the king was like, "What's happening?" It's like, "What's wrong? Why? What's happening? What's wrong with you?" And he's like, "Where are you getting your power from to like withstand all of this torment?" And the little boy Prahlad is like, "Well, I'm getting my power from the same place you're getting your power, and I'm getting my power, like it says on the chat. I'm getting my power from God, from Vishnu." And he said, "Papa, just like the same place you're getting your power from Vishnu." And that just like, whoa, this demoniac king, to hear that he's getting his power from someone beyond himself was just too much to take. So where is this king's like, "Where is your Vishnu? Is he in this pillar?" And the little boy Prahlad's like, "Yeah, he's in this pillar." And he's like, and so the king breaks the pillar, like, "Yeah, where is he?" And then suddenly comes out this half man, half lion, to protect Prahlad. And then he kills the king to protect his little boy devotee Prahlad. So that's the story of how the lion or lion king or the lion lord, um, the lion lord came all those
The
years
original
ago.
Lion King.
The original Lion King, yeah.
That was very excellently, that was brilliantly summarized, actually, because it's a story that a lot of people who grow up within certain traditions, they kind of can, affiliate with. But for
Mm.
someone who's kind of new to it, what's kind of the symbolism in that? What perspectives does it offer to us in terms of unconditional love, and why is Nrsimhadev this manifestation of the divine, pictured and kind of perceived as fierce on the eyes, this
Yeah.
laughing claws and quite fierce looking.
Yeah, it's a good point, Sarge. A lot of people ask that question when they come and they see a picture of Nrsimha. They're like, "Hold on, he's God, but he's got blood all over him, and he looks like a really angry lion. Um, like, don't you want to believe in a God that's nice? Like what's up?" Um, this is the most this is what I find really interesting about unconditional love. Because when we think about what is unconditional love is, "I'll just do anything for you, whatever it takes. I'm gonna do anything for you because I love you." It's like and for a parent who's got a child, I guess that's the closest thing we can really see that can resemble that. Like, I've got two young daughters. I wouldn't say I've got unconditional love because I still need them to brush their teeth. But there's still a lot of love that I've developed for them that I never knew I had in my heart. It was just when they came, it's like, "Oh, I didn't realize my heart could do this stuff." Um, and I remember having my first daughter, and when my wife was pregnant with our second daughter, I remember saying, "I don't think I'll be able to love anyone as much as I love Keshavi." And then my second daughter came along. I'm like, "Oh yeah, yes I can." Whoa, whoa, whoa! Something else is happening to me. So this is what unconditional love kind of is. It's just like this desire. "I'll do anything for you, whatever. It doesn't matter what you are, who you are. I'll do anything for you." So in a nutshell, this demoniac king, he had a boon that he couldn't be killed by, because he was so powerful. He had a boon that he couldn't be killed by a man or an animal. And so what Vishnu, the Lord, decided to do was come down as half man, half lion. He also had more boons because what this demoniac king was trying to do was trying to basically get rid of all options of being killed. So he had different boons, like, "I can't be killed in the daytime, I can't be killed at nighttime, I can't be killed in the sky, I can't be killed on the land, I can't be killed with a weapon." So he asked for all these boons, and he got all of them because he did a lot of austerity. He paid a lot, you could say, he paid a lot of tax to get these boons.
Yeah.
And when he got all these boons, the Lord decides that I still need to look after this little boy who really believes in me, who really has faith in me, who's really seeking my shelter. He really wants my connection. And so he comes in this form looking very ghastly, half man, half lion. He ends up killing the demon, not in the sky or the land, it was on his lap, not with any weapons, it was with his nails, not daytime or nighttime, it was dusk. So the Lord managed to find a way of saving this little boy Prahlad without breaking any of the boons that the demoniac king had. And that's how the Lord shows his love. And why is it that it's unconditional? I think one thing that's really interesting is all of us are here on this chat today because we've got some inclination towards spirituality, or even a curiosity about spirituality. And one thing about spirituality, it's a quest to live a more fulfilled life, a life that's meaningful, and a life that is authentic. This is the real me. And when we're trying to be the real me, the spiritual me, the higher thinking me, the think Gita me, a lot of the time we're also trying to balance other people, other things, other situations. And what the Lord does is just say, look, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. Even though I look so ghastly, so bloody, so fierce, so angry, I don't care what anyone thinks of me. I'm here to protect that little boy. And there's a lot to learn from that, because how often do we neglect what we really think is the right thing to do just because we're worried about what others will think of us?
Yeah, that resonates massively with me, and I'm sure a lot of people here on this chat, because we often are acting from a place of fear and wondering what others think of us is more important than what we think of ourselves.
That's a good point. What we think of ourselves. Yeah. Yeah.
So you've touched on some really key things there about the not the need not having the need for that validation or that reverence from others, you know.
Mm.
But how does that tie in? Do you think with unconditional love, do you think that is something which is unattainable here on the material plane, or that even a parent's love for the child, sometimes people could say that that can turn conditional if they don't behave in a certain way? You said your dad wanted you to
Yeah.
study, what was it?
Pharmacy. Yeah.
Pharmacy. My parents would preferred that I study get a degree, you know, instead of going to drama school. But and then I went and I've tried different careers to fit that bill, you know,
Mm.
even though they've been extremely supportive of me creatively. So what are your views on that,
Yeah. I
and how
think
that ties in with spirituality?
I think so. Your question, your what you're saying is that I'm just trying to get to the essence of what you're saying. I think what I guess is what I'm really feeling in my heart to say right now, in response to what you said, is we all have we've all born, we've all come with a real authentic spiritual purpose. And what happens is, as we spend time here, it gets covered by what we see and what we believe, and what starts to happen as the years go by is that we start to tell ourselves what we hear, and we then have an internal dialogue that may or may not be very healthy. The script, the inner critic, the inner script may not be very healthy. Like, you'll never, I don't know what you had, but it could be anything. You'll never make it, 1% make it
Yeah,
as an actor. I don't know,
yeah,
0.01, whatever.
yeah, not good enough, or
Yeah.
people are gonna laugh at you, or you seek that external validation.
Yeah, and so you've been told this stuff. Whoever it is, may not be parents. It might be other family, other friends, teachers, whoever. But if we grow up with this, then what happens is we have an internal dialogue that keeps telling us, as we grow up, as we go through the years, and as we become adults and as we grow as adults, that, okay, I'm, like you said, I'm not good enough. People are going to laugh at me. So then, how do we live our life? Well, we live our life making sure that I am good enough and people don't laugh at me. And then when that becomes our life, I don't want people to laugh at me and I want people to think I'm good enough. We lose what we were born to do.
It becomes contaminated, and
Yeah, it becomes covered, blocked, and then we start living a life that is not us.
Yeah.
and we start to do things and be someone that isn't the real me, and then we wonder why we're frustrated, upset, and feeling that we're not really connecting internally with our real self.
Mm.
It's because we're not being our real self,
Mm.
because the internal dialogue has given us so many labels. The internal script, the thing, what the mind keeps telling us is not um, to fulfill your potential, to go find the real you. Um, and then we're living in a conflict within ourselves. It's an inner conflict.
Mm. Mm.
Mm.
Thank you for giving that answer, because it's a really hard question. I suppose there's no right or wrong
Mm.
perspective on it. There are many different perspectives, but you touched on the mind there.
Yeah.
And I'd really love to get a little bit into your studies with psychotherapy and how you found synergies in your studies with psychotherapy and your spiritual practice, which you've cultivated now for tw 20 years.
Yeah, it's been about
Yeah.
20. Yeah, I think it's been about
Wow,
20
which is
years.
amazing.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. I think for me, it was, I found that ultimately with spiritual life, it was like when I first came into spiritual life, I just found it like, wow, I found the answer. This is what my life's meant to be. I need to learn how to become more devotional. I need to clean my heart from all this contamination and really go for it. And as the years went by, what starts to happen whenever you try to clean anything is you start to realize how much dirt there is. And right, if you clean your house, it's like, oh, you think you're going to take 2 hours. I'm going to clean the house for 2 hours. And if you do a proper job, you don't get past the first room in 2 hours. So over the years, the cleaning was happening. Well, the cleaning began, I guess, and the dirt was coming up. And as the dirt came up, as the um, the inner critic became stronger and stronger, the internal dialogue was more and more negative. I guess what came to me in terms of wanting to wanting to understand psychotherapy was okay. One thing I realized is okay, I've got quite a bit of anger inside. You know, there's a lot of anger inside me. And so what I did was at the time I thought, okay, why don't I see a therapist just about anger? Like, you know, why don't I just go and see a therapist and talk about having anger issues? And then after speaking to a therapist about anger issues, I think I just went for like a month or two, but I thought, wow, this is amazing. Like just getting to know myself. Like, okay, where's it coming from? What's the reason? What causes it? What's the inner script that makes me angry? What's the anger is a secondary emotion. There must be something behind the anger. Oh, what is it behind the anger? Oh, actually, I'm quite sad. Oh my God, I didn't even know I was sad. And it's like we don't even realize things. And
Mm.
and I just guess getting to know myself in that way then helped me, or does continue to help me, continued to help me spiritually and still does. And then as the years went by, I thought to myself, actually, um, this is an amazing tool for spirituality. And about 10 years ago, maybe a bit less, then I started to do some mentoring, and just people who are trying to start up their spiritual life would come and ask me advice about how to how to deepen their spiritual connection, how to become more spiritually connected, more devotional, and how to understand the Gita better. And I was getting things like, I remember one person said to me, I feel suicidal. And I was like, okay, um, I'm not qualified for that, you know, and I realized that. And I thought to myself, if I'm really going to help people spiritually, I think I should also try and get to help people mentally, because it's all connected, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So that then made me think, okay, let me try and see if I can work on this. So then I did a couple of counseling courses, and then I just thought I might leave it at that. And then I got quite inspired. So now I'm just in the middle of doing, I'm in the middle of doing a diploma in psychotherapy. And with that, I'm kind of realizing that the dirt that comes out, if we don't have an idea of what it is, then it will just keep coming out, and we might not be able to manage what's coming out. So psychotherapy and spirituality in that sense are connected for me, because while the dirt's coming out, while the anger was coming out, the pride comes out, the arrogance, all this stuff that comes, if I'm aware of it, and that's how psychotherapy helps, then in terms of spirituality, I'm aware, I'm able to then think, okay, this is all the dirt. This is not the
Yeah,
person I want to be. This is the
yeah,
stuff that's getting in my way. So in that
yeah.
sense, it seems like a dual track going in the same direction.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that what was really clear to me there is the word they used was awareness, having that awareness.
Mm,
And often when we embark on our spiritual journeys and we're trying to grow spiritually, we're often going to matters of the soul and the
yeah.
heart, and that's what we're trying to cleanse. But
Mm,
really, the gateway to enable us to be able to navigate that space is through the mind,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And they're both so intrinsically linked, they're almost symbiotic in a way. So it's
Mm,
very important
mm,
for us to be able to tread both paths and keep both healthy. So I'd love the fact that you mentioned therapy there, because I think
yeah.
it's so incredibly important for people to be able to process what's going on inside their minds in those kinds of spaces, because they're not necessarily afforded those spaces in our day-to-day environments. Like you said,
Yeah.
your students was able to come forward and speak to you about feeling, suicidal.
Mm, mm,
But the inner critic you spoke about there, that I
yeah.
think ties in a lot with self-love
Yeah.
and how accepting ourselves and going on that journey. For me, it's an uncomfortable journey of self-love, and for a lot of people,
Oh,
I think it is. How do we cultivate that into our spiritual practice? Could you give us any steps that you might have taken, or what things that might have worked for you?
yeah. I think thanks, Sarge. It's a really interesting topic, and it is difficult. And I think it's difficult because, like we just mentioned about awareness, it's not always that we're aware of why we find spiritual life sometimes quite tricky. Like we could read the Gita, and in the Gita, Krishna is saying to Arjun, "I'll protect you. You know, just surrender unto me. I'll protect you. Don't worry about anything, and all your fears will be erased. You just surrender." And when we read something like that in the Gita, it can be like, why should I believe this Krishna is going to do that for me? And if we really think about why is it that I don't believe it? Well, I don't believe it because I've not anyone I've come across here who I've actually ever trusted with even a secret. They've gone and told someone else. It's like when we've been let down so much. So if we've not, because we've lived a life where we've experienced so much letdown, because we've lived a life where we may not have been accepted, then it's so hard to believe that Krishna will accept me. That, in the Gita, like Krishna saying, I'm accepting you, Arjun. And when I read that, I'm thinking, well, that's just for Arjun, that's not for me. How can he accept me? But it's because I can't believe it. My inner mind, my internal dialogue is, I'm not acceptable. I'm not acceptable. And if I don't feel acceptable, I don't think that Krishna, God, is going to accept me. So therefore, it's kind of like a process of, okay, do I accept myself? Can I accept myself for all my shortcomings? And then it's like we may think, actually, I find that hard. I find it really hard to accept my own shortcomings. Okay, name one of your shortcomings. Can I ask you that, Sarge?
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe
My
not. Maybe nothing that
No,
you
of
don't feel
course, I'd love
uncomfortable
to.
to share.
I
Yeah.
think the more we share, the better. One of my shortcomings is I've only just started to address this in the past year is lack of boundaries
Mm.
with people and being and pleasing people around me. I've been a big people pleaser my whole life. That as a
Interesting.
classic trait of an actor or a performer is like that need for validation from others, being told it's
Mm.
okay, often to
Mm.
your detriment. So I'd say those are one of my couple of my shortcomings.
Yeah, people pleasing, boundaries. Not. It's amazing that you're even aware of that. That means that you've already started to look inside a bit. Uh,
So,
but
but
if I
like you
just
said, with uncovering it, the minute you look at it, I think you just got to take one step at a time. Didn't you? One bound.
yeah, Yeah, exactly. And maybe if I just dab into it a little bit, when you
Please.
think about people pleasing, um, where does that come from?
Um, not being potentially made to feel secure or enough in my own skin, not having me being my emotions validated. So I feel the need to placate or the need to please others so that my existence then becomes, validated in that sense.
Mm,
Well,
mm,
and also I've been on stage since I was 4 years old. So seeing the response that people have to seeing me dance or seeing me perform, that applause,
mm,
it becomes linked into your inner circuitry, where it's that it can become without that becomes pleasing to others. And if you attach your identity and existence to that applause, then when you don't hear that applause, or when you're not told, oh, you're doing a great job, you're doing good, then something must be wrong because you're not comfortable within yourself.
mm. That's amazing. That's amazing. You've actually looked so deep within yourself to see that. And when
Good
you're on your
help, good
own,
help.
when you're on your own and you're not getting that, how do you help yourself then? Like like you just said there that there's times when um you're not getting that and you're thinking, where's my validation gonna come from? What do you do to then um to manage yourself when you're feeling like that?
I do things like wisdom talks on a Thursday evening. I
Woohoo!
I try and take association of people who are also looking to grow and have that
Yeah,
space. And
yeah.
then I also find that um we live more in the minds of others than we live in ourselves. So trying to participate in activities and behaviors that are going to bring my awareness into myself and not worry about others. I often feel like social media is really effective at getting us to live in the mind
Mm,
in the minds of others.
mm,
So yeah,
mm.
I think association of people is key, and trying to cultivate a spiritual practice that enables you to turn and go inwards from time to
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing, amazing. When we're with people that can look after themselves, can manage themselves, can validate themselves, can take care of themselves, then naturally we take on those qualities. And this is what is really important about where we started this, which is self-love and acceptance. Is, can I accept that I have these shortcomings? Can I just accept that about myself? And once we can accept that we're not perfect and there's parts of us that we might not be totally happy with or totally comfortable with, but just being with that and just accepting that, accepting there's parts of me, there's parts of me that's not perfect. And once we can accept there's parts of me that's not perfect, then from that acceptance, we can have that self love. And what is the purpose of having self love? What is the purpose of having this acceptance? Because generally, when we want to really experience happiness in this world, it's very relational. It's to do with what we can do for others, how we
Mm.
can help someone else, how we can really, you know, especially when we're practicing a life of spirituality. A life of spirituality is generally, how can I be good to the world? How can I be good to others? How can I uplift others? And sadly, what happens a lot of the time is we want to practice this high principle of helping others without helping ourselves. And and if we don't help ourselves, then there's only so far you can take someone else.
Yeah,
And if we can help ourselves, if we can accept ourselves, we can be very accepting of others. And what generally tends to happen if we're not very good at accepting ourselves, we become very fanatic on others. If they're not doing what we do, we think like they're just like a pile of rubbish because they're
yeah,
not following the path I'm following, or they're not following a path, or whatever it is. But if we can accept ourselves for all our shortcomings, then we're able to accept others with all their shortcomings. And that's when we can be an ambassador for spiritual upliftment.
Wow. That
Yeah.
that's really impacted me, because it's like, hurt people, when people
Yeah.
are suffering, then
Yeah.
bring that suffering on others in many ways. And
Mm.
I think that's resonated with people in the chat as well, who've some people reacted and commented. So
Mm.
yeah, um, I'm just processing, because I feel like I've gone through a bit of a therapy session. Um, could
Take
you,
your time.
huh? Sorry.
Take your time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, thank you so much. So where are you at the moment? So you're studying psychotherapy, or are you where
Yeah,
in
so like I'm studying at the same time. So I'm seeing it's like part of the course is we see clients. So I started to see clients, and yeah, there's a couple of years left. I'm doing this longer course because this where yeah, it's a transpersonal and integrative psychotherapy. So that means it's also spiritual, accepting the existence of the soul, and how to basically integrating the mind, body, and soul. That's the integrative side of it.
I was just about to ask that, how you kind of link that in with your spiritual journey, and the
Mm.
Bhagavad Gita. I'm really interested to kind of learn how that's impacted your spiritual journey, and any verses or any particular moments in the Bhagavad Gita that you could share that I think would resonate with today's themes. You already spoke about the surrendering and the acceptance that Krishna is asking, and how that's really linked
Mm.
to yourself. And I never
Mm.
looked at the verse in that way my whole life. So thank you. I've never
Yeah.
really looked at it that way. So thank you.
Yeah. I think the Bhagavad Gita, Saj, is like it's amazing. Every verse has something. There's so many different verses um that can really call out and reach out. In terms of this topic today of the Lion of Love, when Nishingadev comes, he's coming with full unconditional love. I don't care what people think of me. I don't care how I look. I'm here because I've got unconditional love, and I have to look like half man, half lion because I've also got to fulfill the boon that this demoniac king has. So it's okay what I look like, um, and this takes a lot of control within ourselves. That this self control that actually I'm going to go and do the right thing. I'm going to go and do the right thing by me and by everyone else, even if I don't get all, if I don't get the applause on stage, but I'm
Yeah.
going to go and do the right thing because that's what inside is going to make me feel fulfilled, feel authentic. So there's one verse in chapter 3 which says one should not come under the control of attachment and aversion. And I find attachment and aversion a very interesting topic because when we're averse to someone, this is really interesting. When we are averse to someone, there's a really good test, by the way. If you if there's someone in this world who gets right under your skin, like, oh my God, they get right under my skin, not just annoys you, but they get under your skin, your blood starts to boil. There's probably something very common that you have with that person. And the reason that we find it so damn hard, the reason we find it so damn hard to be around such a person is because there's part of that within ourselves. And if we introspect enough, we really see it like, oh my gosh, it's there, it's within me. And then once we can work on it within ourselves, we can become very much more accepting of that other person. But the reason generally we can't accept someone else because it's because actually it's a part of ourselves we find quite difficult to be with. So that's one verse in the Bhagavad Gita that because of this topic we're going on in terms of acceptance, um, it's good to see what part of myself I'm trying to ignore and just project onto someone else or just see in someone else and don't really want to go there because once we have to go inside ourselves, it's quite scary. It's not like it's not always the most fun thing to do. but it's very, very fulfilling when we do go in, when we go into the heart and notice, just notice, just notice what it is, and okay, that is within me. Oh yeah, that is within me. Um, I can now think about that. I can now work on that. I can now look at that. So this verse in the Gita is very interesting for me because aversion generally we think of as just stay away. I'm averse, stay away. But actually, I'm averse because it's in me. And that was striking when I read that in the Gita.
Yeah, it's very striking because I've never heard of aversion being put into that perspective. You're averting that which is inherently within yourself.
It's really under your skin.
It's
Like
very scary.
yeah, it wouldn't get there. It couldn't get that far. You see, you
Mm,
can notice someone else is annoying and then just brush it off. Oh, they're just a bit annoying because they do this. All right, whatever. If they're getting right under your skin, the only reason it's happening is because there's something happening within you that's now invoking into
yeah,
life.
yeah. Wow.
Mm.
Just thank you for sharing these reflections, because they've been really super, super insightful. And I love the way that you bring new meaning to some of these verses in the Gita. And we've talked about self-acceptance, self-love, the synergies between psychotherapy and spiritual practice. So it's all been
Yeah, no, thank you. There's one more verse I wanted to share. That's
please,
okay.
please, please, please.
Which is Well, there's two more I could say. There's one verse
Yeah.
in chapter 10. So I spoke one about one chapter 3,
Just
which is
before you
3 point.
share
Yeah.
them, Kunal, is if anyone has any questions for
Mm.
Kunal, now would be a great time to put them in the chat. So whilst you look at this final verse or this verse that you want to share, we might have some questions that we can
Yeah,
dive into
sure.
when we come out the other side. Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a good point. Yeah, so in chapter 10, Krishna says something to Arjun. He says, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So this just reminds me of that little boy, Prahlad, in that story you were saying. He was just constantly devoted. He had a real firm connection, a real firm belief that God is with me, God is protecting me. And then he just gave him the understanding what to do. So when the demoniac king said, is God in the pillar? He's like, yeah, he is. And he breaks the pillar and God actually came out. I was like, whoa. So it's really interesting. And one thing I can say in 20 years of spiritual life for me, maybe more than 20 years now, is my life has changed so much for the better. I just can't. If I think about what my life used to be like and what my life is like now, and the difference, and yeah, I can only see that there must be someone higher. There must be someone there who's really doing something, reciprocating with me. And this verse in the Gita, um, really calls out that yeah, he, the Supreme Lord, divinity, is reciprocating with me. There's some
Yeah.
reciprocation, and life is about reciprocation. Um, and in terms of the title of the talk, he spoke about fearlessness, and that's the 18th chapter when he said, Krishna says to Arjun, just surrender everything. I'll it's a good, I guess, Linda, I can just get onto this. Well, I just noticed your question on the chat there, and I can get onto what does it mean by surrender. Surrender, if it was to say in a nutshell, is whatever's favorable for our devotional and our spiritual connection, take those decisions, accept all of those things. And whatever is unfavorable for our spiritual connection and a higher, more fulfilling, deep life, reject all of those things. And if we start to accept all of the things, the people, the things, the Thursday nights wisdom talks, if we start to accept all of these, and reject all of these things that take us away, that's surrender. That's how we can connect with divinity. And I remember reading that verse maybe 25 years ago, maybe more. And when I read that, I was like, what's going on here? I was a bit out of it when I read it, I must admit. And then the years went by, and then as I read it now and I read it again over the years, it just takes on a newer and a new and a newer meaning, which is what's so beautiful about the Gita, is that every time you pick it up, it speaks to you. It's alive. You know,
Yeah.
it's new. It's fresh.
Yeah.
And with the newspaper, you know, I take the Metropolitan. I take the tube into London to work. No one wants the metro in the evening because by then the Evening Standards come out. You know, it's like the news changes so quickly that you don't want the old paper. But the Gita's 5,000 years old, and every time we pick it up, it speaks to us in a different way, which to me shows it's reciprocal, it's alive, it's real. So yeah, that's what stands out.
Completely resonate with that. And you're always viewing it with through the lens of your experience, which is
Yeah,
continuously changing. So you could read a
changing.
verse 100 different ways, and then 5 years down the line, even a few months down the line, it could take on a whole new meaning based on your experience, which is
Yeah.
what I love about the wisdom. We've got some really great comments and questions in here. Thank you for sharing them. Please do keep them coming. You've talked about surrender there. Thank you for this is from Hemangi. Thank you for the insightful session. In my mind, I feel a lot of anxiety for someone who I love unconditionally. Maybe it's because of the attachment, but how can we love our loved ones fearlessly? And someone else, Deepa, has asked how to develop self-love. We'll get to that afterwards. So we'll speak about this one first.
How to love fearlessly.
How to love without attachment.
See, what comes to mind is when we love, we love. And love means I want to serve, I want to help, I want to connect, I want to uplift. And all of those things don't necessarily have to have a result that that we're looking for. Generally, anxiety comes in these situations because what we want from our, should we say, determination, from our endeavors, from our effort is a particular result. And Krishna, he says this to Arjuna, look, just go and do your duty. He says, Mam Anushmara Yudhyacha, go and do your duty, which is to fight this war, and just remember me. And in a similar vein, we can just say, let's act with love for this person. Let's do whatever we can for this person to uplift them, to help them, connect them. And then whatever happens, whatever is the result, that's not in our hands. And that's being non-attached. It's not in our hands. We can only do our bit. And then there's so many other factors, and we can just only then rely on divinity to do the rest.
Mm-hmm. That's a really great answer. I've heard it compared in the past using the metaphor of a flower. You love, you wouldn't pick that flower up and keep it for yourself and smell that flower and then take it, and then eventually that flower is, you know, it degrades. You want to water and allow it to blossom and appreciate the beauty of that flower.
Yeah, and if the flower doesn't blossom, you tried your best.
Yes.
And that's all we can do.
Yeah. Thank you. We've got Deepa, how to develop self-love. We spoke a little bit about this, but
Yeah,
it's easy to develop unconditional love for kids, but I'm struggling with self-love and setting boundaries.
Yeah, thank you. Self-love, I think it starts with self-acceptance. Can we accept ourselves, which was what we were touching on earlier, and self-love. It kind of comes like this. If you can love your kids, why can't we love ourselves? What stops us loving ourselves? If we can love our children, why can't we love ourselves? And what is the reason we want to love ourselves? It's not some sort of egotistical love. It's I want to love myself in the same way I love my kids. And why Deepa, can I ask? Maybe you can just unmute. When you show love to your kids, what is it that you want for your children with all that love? Maybe you can unmute.
Deepa, would you like to unmute and share that?
Thank you very much for the wonderful session. Actually, I come from a culture where self-love is considered to be selfish. So all the time we have been taught like whatever I do for myself is considered to be selfish. So I'm really not sure like what is self-love and what is selfish, and sometimes I go over the board and I drain myself, and sometimes I feel burnt out.
Okay.
But now I understand that the self-love is not selfish, it's like mandatory, so that I can fill my I need to charge myself so that I can help
Yeah.
others. So I'm really not sure about that part. That's why I asked.
I think you just answered it. See, self-love starts with self-care. You know, if we really want to go to this place of selflessness, you know, we want to be this person that just wants to do everything for everyone else, that want to be really selfless. And then, like you said, what happens? We get drained and we get burnt out because we don't look after ourselves. And then it's not sustainable. But if we have self-care, do the things that's going to be good for us so that we can maintain ourselves, whether it's our meditation, our reading, the people we hang around, going for yoga, any other type of exercise, whatever whatever's uplifting for us. For Sargis, maybe going on stage, performing, whatever it is that's good for us, and that helps us connect within ourselves and spiritually. When we do these things and we look after ourselves, this is self-love, this is self-care. And then what happens with our cup full, we're really able to give to everyone. And then, yeah, like you're saying, and you can't give from an empty cup, and then you can give from your full cup. But if we're drained, what can we give? Then we give the frustration. Then we give the anger that I was talking about earlier. And my anger was based on trying to give when I didn't have anything. Wasn't taking care of myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's super important. Thank you so much for
Thank you very
sharing.
much.
Thank you for that great question, because I really resonated with that too. Because you're right. Culturally, in a lot of cultures, self-love is painted as being selfish. But
Yeah, just because I wanted to add on one point. When I was having kids, then even going for a walk or just going half a day away with my friends was considered to be like, oh, you don't care about kids, or you're just having fun, you're selfish. So that kind of comments were coming from my family. So I was not sure what I'm doing is right or wrong. And I was like I cut off all my social circle and everything. And then I went into a tunnel vision, and then I got burnt out. That's why I was asking. Thank you.
No, thank you. Yeah, very important to know when people are saying things to us, what's right and what's wrong. And that we have to use our intelligence and have close friends who are really, really are well-wishers. Because getting into a situation like that can be very, very tricky, especially when it's coming from family. So well done for coming out the other side and being able to speak about it, because being able to speak about it really is a massive step.
Yeah. Thank you, Deepa. That's really resonated with me, and I'm sure a lot of people on this call. Thank you for sharing all of that, because it's really inspiring to hear, and it really resonates. We've got some more great reflections. Someone gave a reflection on self-love, saying, what did they say about, you can start by loving yourself, by loving your inner child. You deserve to appreciate yourself, to be grateful for this birth and all you have been given. Therefore, start there by finding love for oneself. I think we've uncovered some really great stepping stones to self-love in this call, which has been helpful. It starts with self-acceptance, and also self-care. Those are great tools to take you on that journey. And what is the inner child? Great question to ask it.
Someone else mentioned the inner child. I'll just say something quickly about it.
Someone else has said, how can you bridge the gap between your inner child and your adult self?
Yeah, so this concept of the inner child is quite interesting, but in a nutshell, it's these inner scripts. A lot of these inner scripts, the script of you're not good enough, you're not going to make it, everyone's going to laugh at you. All these kind of things are coming. It's the child within us, because it's the child within us that probably heard all this. So then what we can do is we can really try and separate our adult self and our child self. Which part of this stuff, which part of me is not yet developed? And in that way we can love our inner child, like you said. We can accept we can give acceptance to the parts of us that doesn't feel accepted. The adult side, the adult us, the mature us that knows that we're not going to get hurt, that we are good enough, that no one's going to laugh at me, can then tell the part of me that's not believing it. And that way we've looked after a part of ourselves, which is the inner child that may not have fully developed. That's just in a nutshell. That's just one angle on it. There's many different angles, and we
Yeah.
could talk months about inner child, but
Yeah. There's
this is
inner child meditations you can do.
there's so many
letters you can
things.
write to your inner child. I think it's a lot to do with your pure, unconditioned, authentic self. And I think the best way to get in touch with your inner child, from my experience and people who I've spoken to about it, is when you're in a mood of play. When you're in a mood of play, you're really bridging that gap between your inner child, and we all have different ways and different things which enable us to get into that mood of play, but finding that experience or that space that enables you to be playful is a great way to bridge the gap. Okay. Do we do one more question?
Yeah, I'm good with time. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So we've got some great comments about self-love. Thank you so much for inspiring words, insightful wisdom. Phil, we all need a little psychotherapy in our lives, as well as spirituality, to provide a balanced and fulfilling self. Paula said, I do have Nrsimhadev in my altar, the deity, and I pray every day for him to help me control lust, not to have thoughts of material ambitions, create anxiety, to surround to Krishna and trust that the best will happen, not to be afraid, not to be intimidated by fear of not controlling results. And when things don't go well, to have the strength to understand I'm here to learn, to trust Krishna, and always, as Prahlada, the little boy, has done in every situation.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's see if there's any more. No, just more stuff on inner child. To be as happy and as emotional as a child is our inner child. I think I'm going to wrap there because we're getting very close.
I think there's Heta with her hand up. I think in the.
Would anyone like to come up online to ask the question? Would they like to come off mute? Did anyone have their hand up? Heta?
Yeah. She's on mute. You're just on mute if you want to unmute. There you
Hare
go.
Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful. You know how, Kunal, you were mentioning that sometimes God resonates with, there's a connection, as you said, and I'm connected to today's session because I've had a very rough day at work. But the thing is, I picked up my inner child, went for a walk because things were not going right work-wise. But the thing is, if you understand how you're feeling and then work on those first before those problems, and that has helped me today too. But then, as you say, God connects you with these types of sessions and you get these answers in these sessions as well. And I feel like sometimes what you've just mentioned, there are some shortcomings in you that you see in that other person. That's why they come under your skin.
Yeah.
How do you have to first come over those shortcomings in you first before you can get answers from that other person? You don't need answers, but how you can go further?
Yeah, ultimately, we can't change anyone else, and whatever anyone else does won't really change us in a deep and profound way. The only thing that can really help us is if we can uplift ourselves. So what we see in others, if it helps us see something within ourselves and we uplift ourselves, then we see the world differently. We make some inner progress, and we're not as bothered about things that we used to be. And that's generally us becoming more and more free to play, more free to really get in touch with the soul. And the soul is very playful. The soul is spiritual. The soul wants to connect in a very meaningful and profound way with divinity. And the more free we get from our inner blocks, the better it is. So yeah, the only thing that will help us is how much we become uplifted. Whatever anyone else does, how much they change, is not in our control, and it won't really make a massive difference compared to us taking steps in our life. Thank you for sharing, and I hope you're having a better evening than you did in the day. The walk must have really helped. It's so good, isn't it? Just going to do something. Today I went for a walk as well. Just sometimes just going out in nature, amazing. You know, just doing the simple things. And we're all different. We all like different things, and part of the experience of spirituality is what makes me tick. What's good for me? Do I need to go for a swim? Do I need to go for a walk? Do I need to sit in? In a yoga space on my own? Whatever it is, what is it that makes me tick? That's going to help me get balanced and grow and connect with my inner soul, which is full of bliss, which is full of happiness, which is full of excitement and play. That's what we want. That's what we want to be at. And then we can let it go, whatever argument we're having with someone at work, or our partner, or our kid, or our parent, and just be free of all of that. If it helps you, Hemangi, go for it. Whatever helps.
I'm gonna echo Linda's sentiment here. Thank you for this beautiful session. You've brought a lot of warmth, insight, love, and wisdom into this Thursday evening for all of us. And I for one, definitely needed it. And I think it really resonated with a lot of people here who've joined us.
Thank you. I feel that it's, like you said, Saj, that it comes from the association. So just by chatting with you, I felt I was feeling a lot of your love and wisdom, and it was all thank you.
It's reciprocal. It's reciprocal.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.